Lindsay Davis is an author, Emmy Award-winning journalist, and news anchor for ABC News. While looking for books for her son, Lindsay noticed a shortage of diversity represented in most of them. So she decided to do something about it. In her latest children's book, How High is Heaven?, Lindsay helps families cope with the loss of loved ones while also allowing kids to see characters they can relate to.
All right, Lindsay joins us now. Lindsay, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Well, you're an award-winning journalist, obviously a very busy lady. Now this is your fourth children's book. So looking back a bit, what motivated you to begin writing books for kids?
Sure. Well, when my son was first born 8 years ago now, as a baby, we would be reading children's books to him. And I was thinking, I could do this. I really would enjoy that because, you know, my day job, if you will, I can, anchor, reporter, and I write news stories. But at the heart, at my core, I feel like I'm a storyteller. And in the same way, I feel like do the same thing here now, just for children, where I'm able to really tell the literally and figuratively the good news. Quite often in journalism in that field, it's kind of murdered, missing, mayhem, and really dark. And it wasn't something that I often wanted my son to even watch, mommy at work with the news. But with my books, they're faith-based. I feel like it's something that gives him a good foundation, and they're also fun.
Your new book, How High is Heaven? Aiden inspired you particularly to write about this subject. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so he came home from school one day and he said, how come my friend has 2 grandmas and 2 grandpas and I just have one of each? And so then I started talking to him about Grandma P, my husband's mother, who passed away when my son was about 1. And so I was saying that she's in heaven, and he said, well, I want to go see her. And so I said, I started showing him pictures so that he could see her. And he said, no, I want to go to heaven to see her. And so I thought this was a short-lived thought that he was going to have, but days became weeks. And then fast forward several months later, we were on a plane and he was looking out the window and he said, I don't see her. And I said, you don't see who? And he said, I don't see Grandma P. I thought while we were up here in heaven, we were going to see her. And that was the moment, Andrew, when I thought, this conversation, this back and forth that we're having here, this dialogue should go in a kid's book.
It's interesting, Lindsay, that he, in a sense, wouldn't let it go. Like, this was really something on his heart. So you wrote a book specifically addressing some of these questions. Tell us about it.
Well, he's really been in my muse for all of my books, unbeknownst to him. So I kind of just had a little fun and played around with this idea of this little boy, as my son was, desiring to go to heaven to be reacquainted with his grandmother. And so this is a little boy thinking about all the ways that he might try and get there himself. He tries to create some wings. He has a pogo stick, a trampoline, builds a spaceship, a hot air balloon, all these physical aspects of one trying to ascend into the heavens. And ultimately, with the arc of the story, he realizes that that's not how you get to heaven. He gets a sense of how we think that you get to heaven. And for now, he decides he's going to enjoy heaven here on earth. And
Lindsay, you're also addressing a need really in the book world, right? I mean, your books are special in they're filling a void. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I think that, it's kind of become cliche at this point where people talk about representation matters. But I can tell you just firsthand, having a Black son and initially having to be so intentional and deliberate when I was looking for books for him that would have characters who look like him. And so I figured, let me, as you said, kind of fill that void. And, I think that the good news is that now a lot of parents are seeing that books that have, Black and brown children are not just for Black and brown children. There was an essay I read years ago that I still hold so true. I think it was really so profound, and that the idea was that every effective children's book needs to have a mirror, a window, and a sliding glass door. So the idea of the mirror, so that the kids can see their own reflection, but a window where they can peer into a world that's perhaps unfamiliar to their own. And if that window is to really be transformative, it can serve as a sliding glass door to kind of transport them into that world. And so in all of my books, I'm very intentional about having spreads where they're at the zoo or the market or the airport, where you see somebody who you're going to be able to relate to as looking like yourself or your friends and family members. So I do think that it's so important that we have that inclusion, that especially, as parents started realizing in the wake of George Floyd, in order to try to raise more empathetic kids. Quite often it's about having that exposure and those experiences. And perhaps if you live in an area that's not so diverse, you can start by placing a book in your child's hands that maybe includes kids that they're not so familiar with.
Lindsay, your wife, your mom, you're a very busy news anchor, journalist, you're an author, children's author. How do you balance all of these things? Is it ever difficult?
Oh, it's always difficult, Andrew. I think, we're just to do the best that we can. And I do try to be present. So in the moment, whatever I'm doing, I really give 150% to that. I'm not here to tuck my son in at night, but I'm make sure then in those the next morning I'm up early to give him breakfast and take him to school. And I do think that there are trade-offs just about in all the choices that we have to make on a daily basis. But hopefully in the end it all works out. And so far the balancing act continues and managing to keep it all in the air.
And Lindsay, last question. We talked about how busy you are, but I know one thing that's important to you is serving, helping people. You host a women's event at a shelter in particular, right? Yeah. Can you tell us about some of that work?
Sure. So, early on when I was in news and kind of climbing my way up through the local news markets, I always was kind of the lowest person on the totem pole. So I always worked all the holidays. And, I remember one Christmas when I was in Flint, Michigan, and they had a gently used coats and hot chocolate. So I think it was warm coats and hot chocolate that they provided for kids on Christmas morning. And I went there and the kids were so happy. They were just beaming to get this hot chocolate and the new coats. And it just moved me to tears, that I felt like growing up, it was often for me as a little kid about like the material and the gifts. And then I felt like, I should do more. And then I thought, no, I need to start doing something. And so shortly after I came here to New York, I started working directly with Fox House, which is a shelter for women and their children in Harlem, New York. And so we load up the gifts, we load up the food, we load up, we bring in all kinds of face paint and arts and crafts so that to provide some semblance of the spirit and also talk about, the reason for the season, right? And so many people will say Xmas, and I am always talking about, keeping the Christ in Christmas and really just trying to kind of lift spirits. And really, I also wanted to do it. It was very important for me, for my son, to model that for my son so that he would realize that it's not just all about the commercial aspects of the season.
Well, Lindsay, we appreciate all you do. We will keep watching you deliver the news to us. And I want to recommend her book, How High is Heaven? It can be found wherever books are sold. And my 10-year-old daughter read it to me last night at bedtime. It sparked some great conversations. It's a beautiful book. Lindsay, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Andrew.
Hello, I'm Gordon Robertson. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more encouraging videos like this one. Welcome to the 700 Club Interactive family, and God bless you.